Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Sarah Banks. After 6 years of struggling with fertility and 2 rounds of IVF, Sarah created the IVF Positivity Planner. Most recently, after much research, she's delivered the Menopause Positivity Planner. In this episode, we discuss the surprising similarities between fertility and IVF and menopause and HRT, also how entering her 40s she is aware of perimenopause and very keen to talk about it, keeping lines of communication wide open, and perhaps most importantly, how she knows she must push herself up her priority list, as should we all. Before we continue, I would like to mention our new sponsor, Cozy Earth, whose breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics mean you never need to worry about hot flashes again. Even their socks are cooler and incredibly soft. Go to cozyearth.com to see for yourself and use code MENOPAUSE for a fabulous 35% off. Sarah, lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining me. Would you like to start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, where you come from and what you do now?
Yeah, of course. So I have worked as a retail buyer and I was working as a senior retail buyer when we struggled to get pregnant. So we'd been trying for 6 years and we went through 2 rounds of IVF to have my son. And because of what we'd been through and the lack of support, I realised that I wanted to do something different and change careers so that I could support people going through fertility treatment. So I retrained to be a personal development coach and a youth coach. I set up support groups to support people through infertility. Around the same time, I had my second child, who I had naturally after we'd been through 6 years of trying. So I now have 2 children who are 8 and 6. So I've worked for the last 6 years supporting people through infertility. So working with clinics and talking to nurses and consultants to increase the support they offer around patients who are going through treatments and running support groups. And then 3 years ago in 2019, I launched my first planner, which was called the IVF Positivity Planner. So it's a coaching program combined with a journal to help support people through IVF and help them take control. So that's been selling really well. Obviously, we had a pandemic and I became a homeschooling teacher through the pandemic alongside my business. Then last year, I decided that I wanted to create another version of the planner to support people who were going through the menopause because I felt it was something, the concept of it would be really helpful. I've changed a lot of the activities so that they're relevant to people going through the menopause. But I knew it'd be really helpful, the fact that it was something to help them take control. So a few weeks ago, I launched the Menopause Positivity Planner. So I now do a lot of work in the fertility industry, supporting clinics and patients. But I have the 2 planners out who are there to support patients and people going through the menopause.
That's remarkable. And having had a few conversations with people, there are actually some surprising similarities between IVF and taking hormones and menopause, the fluctuations of hormones, and then obviously the addition of HRT should you choose to go down that route. Have you found these similarities?
Definitely. And I think for me, a lot of the similarities are around some of the emotions that people have when they're going through them, a lack of control. So when you're struggling to get pregnant, you want something desperately, but you can't do anything to control it. Your body is stopping something happening. Whereas then when you're going through the menopause, something else, a change is happening in your body. The hormones are changing and you feel out of control again. You're getting symptoms that you've not had before. You're feeling lots of different emotional things. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a lot of similarities, as well as in the terms of not necessarily getting the support you need when you're going to your GP or clinicians as well. So the lack of understanding around the physical side, but more so around the emotional side and the support that's needed. So definitely, I mean, within IVF, you're put into an induced menopause. So there's the hormone things are the same, but then there's very different emotional aspects because of the things that are happening in your life at the time.
Yes, of course. And having been through it yourself, I'm sure you understand that as well as anybody. Where are you in terms of menopause?
So I haven't started the menopause that I'm aware of, although I'm in my 40s. I turned 40 last year. And with all the research that I started doing, I was looking through the symptoms thinking, maybe I am menopausal in the perimenopause, because there were so many symptoms that already I'm feeling, and whether that's already those hormone changes have started or whether it's just a factor of the age I'm at, that I've got young children, I'm a busy mum with my own business. So I haven't started the perimenopause as far as I'm aware, although I have been noticing some of those symptom changes. But I've done a lot of research into the menopause, and I'm glad I did, because I'll certainly be a lot more prepared when I do fully start. I'm a lot more aware of the symptoms to watch out for now.
What kind of symptoms have you questioned within yourself, whether they may or may not be?
Oh, for me, the brain fog is like a major one. At points, I've said to people, I think I'm actually worried I'm starting with dementia, because I'm just forgetting stuff. Halfway through a conversation, I can be talking to someone and forget what I was saying. I forget what I'd started to do. I can think I need to do something, and about 30 seconds later, I've forgotten, and just simple things like forgetting words. So that for me is like quite a big one. And I'd been worrying it could be dementia. But when I started then researching the menopause, I thought actually maybe it's just the hormones that are changing.
Mm-hmm.
My periods are still fairly regular at the minute. But, I do wonder, with having been through IVF, if that will affect when my menopause will start. Some of it may just be the lifestyle, like the tiredness and things like that, sort of feeling anxious about more things. And again, you don't know whether that's hormonal or just life factors and aging sometimes, do you?
It's very hard to unpick, particularly if you have young children and your own business, and life tends to have patches where it's particularly stressful, where you might not sleep so well. So it could be or it could not be. But I think awareness is half the battle, and just keeping an eye on how you're feeling. So how are you supporting yourself currently as you enter your 40s?
Well, in terms of symptoms, definitely kind of a watch out. I'm certainly aware of that now, and we'll be tracking them anyway. But it's more on kind of the emotional side of being more aware of some of the things that I'm feeling. And from the research that I've done, that I know that a lot of women feel like they're lacking confidence. And there's a lot of things around society that make you feel like you're not quite as confident when you're getting older, and as though you're a bit more irrelevant. Having time to myself, I think, is really important, that I need to start prioritising that, because I've got so used to prioritising everybody else and my business and things, that sort of making sure you've got that time for yourself. And I'll certainly be the major change from sort of looking into and understanding what I'm about to go through is the need to talk to other people about it. The need to be a lot more open and chat to friends about it, so that we're all a bit more aware of what's coming and talking about the things we're going through, so you can support each other through it.
Opening a conversation and being vulnerable is often the best way to connect with other people. So if they're struggling secretly, but you expose yourself and how you're feeling, then it not only normalizes it, but it kind of invites that shared experience, and then you are more able to support each other, which is great. So I love that talking to each other and talking to your friends is something you want to do.
Yeah, and I've certainly been a lot more vocal around the changes that will happen through the menopause as well. So I've been highlighting to them, because before I'd started researching, and as I've been younger, I've not really realised what it was. And it's only since researching and really taking much more of an interest in it that I've really realised, and I've started saying, so you do know that it's because of this, and you need to be watching out for this, and it's normal to feel like this, to sort of help them understand as well. So I think it's important that we all do that, because the more we all talk about it, the more normal it becomes for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Once you understand something, it is so much easier to handle it and manage it, and you can make informed choices.
That's what I was just going to say. It's all about making informed choices, isn't it? And being empowered, because now I know more about it. I know that I can research HRT, that I can look into lifestyle changes I can make. I can look at different supplements that I could take. And at least now I'm armed with all that information. I can make informed choices about it. And I think it's important to have somewhere that people can find that safe and trusted information.
Is there anything that you're doing to prepare yourself, so when eventually you do get the perimenopause symptoms, or if indeed you do, then you're fully armed, and maybe even they'll be less than what they could have been?
I've always exercised, I dance, so just making sure I'm continuing with things like that. I'm certainly more aware of what I'm eating. I recently found out I've got an intolerance to cow's milk, which has made me think about it more, but I'm certainly more conscious of things. And again, maybe that's an aging thing, but just making sure that some of those things are in place. So it's not a case if I start going through it and I suddenly have to make big changes to my life. So certainly I track my periods anyway from a practical point of view of just knowing if I'm on holiday.
Yes.
I would already see if there was changes happening there, if they start to become more or less regular. So doing that. But yeah, just thinking of the lifestyle things, and it's more on the emotional side, making sure that I'm taking care of myself with self-care, that I've got the support around me, and that understanding, and like I said, the information, understanding that information, so that if I notice that symptoms are starting, then I can start tracking them. But straight away, I know then what I need to take to the GP to try and get to advocate for myself, to be able to get a HRT if that's what I wanted to do, or find out more about it. So I think it's just collecting that information beforehand and being aware of what the symptoms are, because so often we hear when we're younger, it's just things like the hot flushes, your periods stop, and then that's kind of all, you feel a bit hormonal, I think is pretty much what we're told all our lives. Yeah. But understanding all the different things that can come with it, the anxiety, the different physical things, the struggling to sleep, things like that to be aware of, so that we're not just thinking, well, I'm not having hot flushes and my periods haven't stopped, so I mustn't be in the menopause. I think it's being forearmed with information, isn't it?
It is. And it's far more nuanced than just the hot flashes and the changes in periods. How does the planner actually work?
So the planner is a coaching program in a book, basically. So it's a 12-week journal. It gives you all the benefits of journaling. But the difference is it has goal setting within it, but it also has coping strategies. It has coaching exercises. So there's a 3-month goal setting section where you can set goals, and they don't have to be, it's not about making big goals, big changes. It could just be that you want to be feeling better. So you're looking at different ways. It might be, I want to cut down on the chocolate I eat, or I want to cut down on the alcohol I drink, or do a little bit more exercise. So there's goals around self-care, around taking control, around relationships. It might be that you want to spend more time with your partner, or if you haven't got a partner, it could be you want to build relationships with your friends more. So it's a very gentle coaching strategy for you to build that is followed through each month, kind of checking in on how you're doing and what else you need to do to take the next step. So it's all about small steps. It includes monthly trackers for your symptoms. But then also, because I've spoken with a doctor as well about it and worked out the best way from them, there's a list of symptoms that they look for in like the 10-minute appointment they have with you, so that you can then go through your symptom tracker and make a note of the things you're having never, the symptoms that you're having quite often. So those key 8 symptoms. There's the 12 weeks of journaling, which is very much focused on positivity. So what's my positive intention for tomorrow? How have I taken care of myself today? What's gone well today? Those sorts of things. But then there's also a lot of coaching activities at the back. So things around looking at what's good in your life, looking at your regular week, about everything you do for every hour, so that you can then start working out where you can find time for yourself to take back some of that time for self-care, how you can regain your confidence, how you can take back control of some of the things in your life, looking at things like relationships, so time together, what you love about each other, intimacy, getting some of those things back. And then also coping at work. So there's lots of things throughout it around tips on coping with some of the symptoms, but then also at work, some advice on coping at work, like scheduling meetings around times where you feel more with it. So say if you've noticed that you're tireder or the brain fog is worse in an afternoon, schedule your meetings for a morning, or the difficult calls or the difficult tasks for a morning. So it's very much around creating the life that you want, but making small changes and thinking about some of the things you can do to feel happier, to get your confidence back, so you're not comparing yourself, all the things that we struggle with sort of when going through the menopause, but also when we reach a certain age. I think a lot of those things are really relevant still.
The loss of confidence is something that I hear time and time again, which can be debilitating for some women, particularly if you've got to a certain point in your career, you know what you're doing, and then suddenly feel like a rug has been pulled out from underneath you. So building that is wonderful. And I know proven techniques for building good habits are to write them down and keep a track.
That's it. And it also helps you explore some of the things that you think. So those negative thoughts that you're having and emotions around, the lack of confidence. So you may be lacking confidence because you feel like you're not good at your job. But actually, when you start to unpick that, you can look at all the things you've achieved in your job, all the things you're doing well in it. And actually, it's just that maybe, you're feeling a lack of confidence because you're feeling that brain fog, or you're not getting a good night's sleep. So once you find the things that could be the root of that confidence, then you can try looking at how to manage it. So if it's a lack of sleep because you're sweating through the night, maybe look at getting thinner duvets or different nightwear, or looking at your bedtime routine, things like that. You can then start to look at, because we generally say, oh, I don't feel very confident, but it's unpicking that and trying to find what it is that's causing us to feel like that. Is it because actually if we went and had our hair done, or had some time to ourselves to have a bit more self-care, or just to go and read a book, that actually we might just feel better about ourselves, which would then boost our confidence a bit. So it's just, there's so many different things. I think it can feel quite overwhelming when you're having all of these emotions. Just write them down and start working through why you're feeling that way and what you can do about it is really important.
And building up that self-care routine, tiny bits of effort are well worth it.
That's it. It's just how you feel about yourself. And it could be things like how you look physically, sort of putting on different clothes to make yourself feel better. It could just be that the fact you've had some time to yourself and you're not harassed because you're thinking of everything your children need to do, or that your parents need to do, that you're trying to look after, or your job, carving out that time. And it can be quite difficult, because if you've got children at whatever age that you're running around after, or even grandchildren, if you're running around after lots of different people, or you're taking care of your parents, or you've got a really busy job, we tend to put ourselves at the bottom of the pile of self-care. And I think even just having that time out for whatever that means to you, whether that is going for some kind of beauty treatment, whether that's going for a walk, reading a book, but carving out small amounts of time to do something that will make you feel better about yourself.
Yes, I agree. And it is just the simplest of things sometimes, just showing up enough for yourself to elevate your mood.
Just be taking the time in the morning, giving yourself 10 minutes extra to sit and have a coffee in the quiet on your own, or watching the news, or scrolling through your phone, whatever it means to you, but that bit of peace where you just sit for 10 minutes. If that's what you need, then that's what's important to you.
Moving yourself just a tiny bit up the list, a bit higher, is crucial at this time of life, I think, for exactly those reasons. And one of the barriers I hear outside of the podcast to taking care of anybody, or taking care of yourself, is the lack of time. So how would people start to address feeling like they just don't have time?
I think it's sort of thinking about what you have on. So one of the activities in there is literally every day of the week from, I think it's like 6 o'clock through to midnight. Write down on a typical week what you do, whether that's doing a school run, getting to work, working all day, coming home, making tea, kids to classes, your classes, working at everything you do on a regular week, so you can see what's in there. Have a look and see if there are slots of time that you could use. How could you work that? But then think about things you could change. Is there anything you could delegate to other people? Is there somebody that could do that for you? If it's housework and you've got older children, could you delegate some of that to them so that you get a bit of time back? And I think it's part of that is allowing yourself to give those things to other people, not feeling guilty for doing it, but thinking about the things on your to-do list that really don't need to be done then at that time, because we're all guilty of that, adding stuff on our to-do list and taking on too much. Other things that could wait till another day, so you can have that time. And I think then when you've carved out a set time for yourself, it's much easier to keep that time. I dance, so on a Wednesday, it's a case of, no, on a Wednesday, I'm at dancing from these times, and I really make sure I stick to it. And we work, sometimes it's quite hard working around it, but we do it because I say that's the only time I do that for me. So it's thinking, once you can see clearly the things you have on, it's much easier to think, actually, we've got my friend's child goes to that class. Could one of us take them, one pick them up and carve back a bit of time rather than us both taking our children separately? Brilliant. Could a family member take over that? So if you have commitments to looking after elderly parents, could your sibling take one day and you take another, so that you're alternating? So it's, once you've got that written down, you can then start thinking about where you can make changes. And as I say, part of it is finding the time. Part of it is prioritizing yourself and knowing it's okay to take that time out and not feeling guilty about doing it.
Actually asking for help. I know a lot of people find that really hard, but it can be very empowering.
Yeah, I think we feel as a society we have to be able to do it all, and if we're not managing everything ourselves, then we're somehow failing. Speaking, personally as a mum, I very much feel like I have to be able to juggle everything as a mum. Otherwise, I'm not doing what I should be doing, and that's the wrong attitude to have. But I think a lot of us feel that we should be juggling a career, we should be juggling everything else we have going on. And yeah, asking for help sometimes feels like we're putting on other people and as though we're saying we can't manage, but it's perfectly all right to be asking for that help.
The expectations around what women should do or should be able to do, I find almost impossible, or actually, no, literally impossible to live up to. So having been through IVF, I imagine you might have encountered some of those expectations as confrontational, and certainly through menopause, different expectations, but also confrontational. How do you support women through those?
Well, I think firstly, it's understanding that it's normal to be feeling the way you are and that you're not on your own going through that. I think certainly when we were going through our IVF struggles and our infertility struggles, and now when I speak to women, a lot of it is they think they're the only ones thinking that. So then they think there's something wrong with them for thinking that as well. So a big part of it is knowing you're not alone and that other people also think that, and that it's normal, and that it's okay to expect more. It's okay to expect to be happy and to get support. Society has these norms that we all feel we have to conform to. But actually, I think as a whole, we need to be breaking those norms. We need to be changing how people are viewed so that it helps everybody going through them. But I think it's knowing that it's okay, that it's normal, and then finding ways that are right for you to cope through that. So when people are struggling with IVF, a lot of people like to take control of things they can because they feel very out of control of it, which I think is also the same for the menopause. Your body's doing things that you're out of control of. Mm-hmm. So I think finding ways you can take control of those things and things that work for you, but knowing that you have that support. So I run support groups, and when people message me all the time or on the group saying, I've been to this, and people are asking questions about when we're starting a family, and they find that hard, but having somebody to talk to about that says, oh, I felt like that as well, is really helpful. It normalizes and validates how you're feeling.
It's exactly that, coming back to conversation and education and allowing yourselves to be vulnerable so that you're not alone and you can comfort others in the fact that they're not alone as well. How do you feel menopause is perceived?
I think it's great. There's so much in the press at the minute around menopause and highlighting really what the menopause is like and why people need support. I think generally over the years, there isn't a great view of it. I don't think there's enough support. I think it's people who are menopausal are seen as, you just hear people describe as, oh, they're just going through the change. You have to just kind of put up with it. It's not talked about. People kind of whisper that they're going through it. So I still don't think there's enough. I think much more is being done now, which is brilliant to highlight things like the menopause and women's health. And we shouldn't just be expected to get on with life. We're half of the population. I was just having a conversation with somebody who, even now, things that have been in the press recently in the last couple of days about how people are like, well, I didn't suffer through the menopause, so I don't know, you must be weak if you're struggling. And people seeing it as like that, almost like this competition of not being supportive, that people don't think it's really something people should be moaning about. And I just think it's really wrong that there isn't more awareness, there isn't more education for younger people about what's going to come. So when I started doing all of my research for the planner, I was shocked about how many different ways you could be impacted by the menopause, around about the fact there's so many hormone receptors around your body that need estrogen, and that's why you have symptoms that you have and the changes it makes in your brain. It doesn't get talked about in a medical sense in that way, about the changes that are happening and how that affects your body and all the symptoms. As I say, it's getting much better. There's much more awareness around it, but I still don't think there's enough talking about it and talking about it in terms of how women can access that support and understanding.
What do you get asked the most from your women who message you?
I get a lot of people saying about how can they feel more in control, how can they take back control. And I think that that goes across infertility and the menopause, because I think it's that big thing of feeling out of control. So how they can take back control and how they can start making changes, because it feels so overwhelming when there's so many things they want to make changes with. They might be told, well, you need to exercise more, and they've never exercised in their life, and they're tired all the time. They need to eat better, but they don't know where to start, and it's quite overwhelming knowing how to even start making those changes and how they can take control. So what I tend to talk to them about is just starting to create a plan. Think about the things they want to do. Is it that they want to start doing some exercise? And it could just be then small steps. Research what sort of think about what exercise you do like, what you'd like doing, what you'd be happy to continue doing. Maybe research some classes. So it's just small steps at a time. See if your friend wants to go with you to an exercise class so you're not on your own, or maybe do an online class so that it's not quite so, you don't feel quite so vulnerable if you're anxious about going. But thinking about the small steps that they can take, and they start feeling back in control again. Same with things like losing weight. If it seems like quite a big thing, whether that's losing weight to get your BMI down for IVF, or whether that's just because it should help with menopausal symptoms, whether that, it's something you've been told. Even things like starting to research recipes could be the first thing. Mm-hmm. Choosing a couple to do and planning them in. So it's just how they can start making changes when they feel really overwhelmed. And it's just about making a plan, and it not being too scary a plan. If it's that you want to spend 10 minutes a day doing meditation, but you've only managed 3, be kind to yourself. Well, actually, 2 days a week, it's really difficult because I have to do the school run, or I have to be in work early. So actually, maybe those 2 days I need to shift it to be in the evening. Just thinking about other things you could do to try and make it happen, but not beating yourself up. I think that it's really key. It's great to set goals and an action plan to help keep you accountable and try and help you, but don't beat yourself up if you don't achieve it and you don't get round to it, because let's be kind to ourselves a bit more.
What would be your one key piece of advice?
I'd say do your research around what you're going through so that you can then make informed choices. So research around whether that's HRT and medicinal things you can do. So all the different forms of it, what would be right. And that could be talking to your GP about it. Look at lifestyle changes you could take to help with some of those symptoms, especially if you've got specific symptoms. Think of lifestyle changes you could make, layering up if you're going to have hot flushes throughout the day, things like that. Planning, sort of busy times and busy weeks around weeks where you're probably more likely to be feeling better within your cycle. Researching things like holistic therapies and supplements and things so that you're fully informed, and then you can make decisions based on that. Start making those changes because you've got all the information there. And it's not too late to make changes at any point. I think sometimes you think, well, I should have started taking HRT earlier, or I should have started exercising earlier, or things, we beat ourselves up over things, but it's never too late to start making those changes. It will always help whenever you start them.
Sarah, where can people find your Menopause Positivity Planner?
So they can find it on my website. So it's positivityplanners.com. So it's on there so they can find out more information. I've also got blogs on there, so there is support there as well. And they can read more about it, see some pictures of what it's like, to see if it's something that would be right for them.
Thank you so much for your time. It has been really lovely talking to you.
You too. Thank you. It's been really lovely. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Lovely. Take care, Sarah. You can also find Sarah on Instagram at Menopause Positivity Planner. Follow us on the podcast apps, and remember you can subscribe to the newsletter through the website realmenopausetalk.com. A huge thank you to our new sponsor, Cozy Earth, creators of luxury bed linen, nightwear and loungewear. And don't forget the socks. Cool, comfortable and irresistibly soft. Seriously, they just feel incredible and designed to help you get a great night's sleep. Go to cozyearth.com and use the code menopause for 35% off. Please remember to share with everybody you know and send in your comments. It's always great to hear from the listeners. We love to hear your views, your questions, and would love to know anything you want to find out about. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.